Hi, welcome to Chad Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I really appreciate you visiting. It really helps YouTube to promote my channel if you hit the like button before you leave. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that helps out a great deal. I wanted to thank a couple of groups. First of all of my subscribers on YouTube. We just are approaching 4,000. I imagine we'll hit 4,000 probably before I get this video out. That's amazing, and I appreciate all of the kind things that you've all said, and the good comments and suggestions, and you know, all of the financial support and stuff that you guys have given me by buying me coffees and stuff. Thank you so much for that. That makes this a lot easier to devote so much time to. The other group I wanted to thank is my patrons over on Patreon. I have a new one. His name is Cliff C. I wanted to especially thank Cliff for signing up. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to having you over there as part of the community. So today's project is I'm going to do 3 different atypical settings for square stones, just for something different. And instead of just your standard bezel settings, I was going to do a couple of different things and show you how I do them. So let's get started. I picked out some stones that are squares, or squarish, I should say. So here's the 3 stones that I picked out. One's kind of a big one. It's that, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Yoehi blue opal from up in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. Some rose quartz, and a little bit of labradorite. And they're all kind of squarish stones with different sorts of aspects to them. This one in particular is kind of a weird cut, and it's got these steeply angled sloped corners on it that I'm going to have to deal with in some way, and so that'll make for an interesting set. This labradorite is just kind of a pretty little labradorite, so do something. I think I'm going to make a ring out of this one, and probably pendants out of both of these. I'll show you how to do a few basic ways to set square stones here, other than just your standard bezel. So, let's see what I drew up here in my little idea book. We've got, this one's just kind of a standard framework with 8 prongs on it to hold the corners. And then we'll just kind of prong set that big, the Yoehi opal, or however it's pronounced. For the little labradorite, I thought I'd do just kind of a simple ring, but with these prongs that are actually loops I've seen people do before over the sides of the stone. It'll be interesting to see how that looks. And then this one, we're going to do a rear mount setting, because I'm going to try to create a setting that the stone will rest against and can't go any further, but that matches these curves here. And then we'll rear mount it and fold something over the back so that it holds it in place. And that'll be for this one here, maybe. So I pre-made some components. I did some bales for these already. And I did the frame for this so we could get through them pretty quickly, since there's 3 different projects here. So I think let's start with this one. So the way I do you can do this with just about any kind of even really irregular stones. This is a great way to do it, and I even have a video about, I think I call it rocking your favorite rock or something like that. I'll put a link up there that shows you how to do the basic framework for this kind of a thing. This one's going to have more specific kind of neat prongs on it than those ones do, though. So I went ahead and I made the frame so that it just sits right on top of it like that. And I used 14 gauge sterling square wire. With square wire, when you bend it into sharp corners, it tries to twist on you. So you always want to kind of correct that twist as you go if you're making this. And then I just soldered it together. And so we should be good to go here for that. The thing that we're going to need to do here is we need to solder on a loop for a bale and some prongs on the corners. And I was thinking I probably would use maybe some 16 gauge round. So for this one, so far you got 14 gauge square, 16 gauge round for the prongs. I'll probably use a little bit of 14 gauge round for a loop to put on here. And then for the bale, which I pre-made, like I said, I used 26 gauge sterling sheet on the bottom, and this is 22 gauge round wire that I just created a border with and then filed down. So if you want to know how to make those bales too, I'll put a link up there. That's a popular video, And it's a kind of a good standard bail that I use in a lot of things, so I think you might like that one. I've made hundreds of pendants and used that, and people really like them. So, all right, so I've already got the platform made. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use magnesia block here, a nice flat surface. And if you want something sticking upright, they're nice to have a soft surface you can poke things into. And so I think what I'll do for this, in order to get these 8 prongs here, on either side of the corner, there's 2, one here, one there. I don't know if you can see that where I'm showing. Here and here on either side of the corners. If we make a little kind of an upside down U here out of this, we can push it right down in there on each corner and just solder them pretty easily on there, and then snip them into snip the U so that it's just 2 wires then after we're ready to set it. And at the same time here, I think maybe we can put a jump ring on here for the bail to hook onto. So let's do that. Let's first of all, let me see. This is not perfectly square, so it fits better one dimension than the other. Which side should be the top? It's not perfectly. It's more rounded trapezoid. I think that needs to be the upside right here. So I'll make the top of here. Let's see if I got any loops made here. Sometimes I have some loops I've made for some other stuff laying around. I can just snip one off. That's a good size. I'll cut one off of there. So let's just solder him closed. I have a little bit of solder here from stuff I was doing earlier. I use hard silver solder for most things in sheet form. And I use a flux called My-T-Flux. It's a spray-on flux that I get from Rio Grande. I'll look at it this way. If I don't, I won't get it in the center. That's probably my worst thing, is I have trouble getting stuff centered when I'm trying to solder it together. And you get almost to the end and then you realize, oh, that's not in the center, so you gotta fix it. And that's when you screw things up usually. Alright. You know what, I'm gonna go ahead and solder that on there right now. Let's just do that. Yeah, a nice good solder joint there, it looks like to me. I'll let that cool for a second. In the meantime, we can make these little U-shaped pieces of 16 gauge round. I want to have extra so I don't have to worry about it. So let's make these at least, I don't know, a ½ inch just to get there. So, and we're making loops, so it'll be 1 inch. But I also want some to go down into the pad too, so let's make it 1.5 inches for each one. 35 or 36 millimeters-ish, I think. Probably the distance on the diameter of these bail making pliers will be a good size of loop in order to get these prongs separated about the right amount that I want. So I'm just going to bend it around the center of that. Never done one exactly like this, but seems like we should be able to do this. We'll find out. I just did a video for my patrons and posted it this morning. It was on making a stick pin, actually, that was kind of a retro modern looking sort of a flower burst kind of thing. That was kind of fun to make. So if you're interested in that, we've got different tiers over there. I have got 4 tiers. The lowest being a $5 tier, which gets you basically ad-free content. So I'm just going to push these in here. And then the $10 tier, which is probably the biggest group, and they get access to the exclusive tutorials and stuff that I do over there for these guys. And there's a $25 one where we do live streams occasionally. They also have, you know, all the perks for the other tiers. I haven't had a $125 memory sign up yet, but it actually, for them, I would be doing kind of like a couple hours a month of one-on-one instruction via the internet. So, all right, let's see if I got those pretty symmetrical. Oh, but if you're interested in that, check out the video description for the link to it. We've got a lot of nice people over there kind of building a community where we can share ideas, and you know, if I don't know how to do something, there's almost certainly somebody over there who does, so it's a good resource. Okay, so let's I'm going to cut myself some decent sized pieces of solder, and we'll just solder it on there. That's what I love about magnesia blocks. It makes it so much less work to keep things in place because you can just push stuff right into it. So, raining right now. I live in a semi-arid climate, so getting some weather. You may notice that I pick solder a lot. If you're interested in my pick soldering video, put a link up there. I have found that pick soldering was the thing that took me from somebody who could solder okay to somebody who's pretty good at soldering. So it ramped up my game a lot. So you should learn how to pick solder. Oops, missed on that one. Got him that time around. It's a coffee table. Alright, so let's put a bail on there. I'm just going to pick solder this guy right around like that. And then we'll let it pickle, and then I'll do one of the other ones. And then we'll let that one pickle, and then I'll do the last one. Okay, so I just need to get a little solder in there. Normally I wouldn't elevate something like this. I'd push it all the way down into the pad because then there'd be no chance of anything falling off. However, since this bail is a separate piece, I don't even need to heat the other piece because you only have to heat the piece you're trying to get up to temperature, which generally with silverworking is the whole thing, but in this one I have a separate loose piece here, so I'm going to throw a little more in there, just so it's a good solid joint. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to heat that just a skosh, and we'll throw him in the pickle, and we'll do the next one. I think, let's do the ring next. So I got this labradorite here. I went ahead and made a square base that's just a little tiny bit bigger around the stone than I need. And what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to kind of like what we just did here, is I'm going to make like a U, make a like a U. I'm going to make a U, but instead of putting it on the corners, I'm going to put it on the middle of the sides and try and get those to sit up like that. So. Okay, so that looks about the right width, but is that going to be enough height to actually get a grab on the stone? I don't know. I don't think so. So maybe we might need to elongate it a little bit. Would that be tall enough? That's the question. Probably. That's the answer. Not a very definitive answer, but let's give it a try and see. So I can cut half circles off of this and then just make them a little bit elongated, and then we'll solder them down to the top of this and see how it goes. Okay, let's check quality control here. Pour. Good. Just kidding. This one's a little long, I think. Maybe I'll file this one just a skosh more. Good enough, I think. Okay, so now how do we get this vertically soldered onto the square is the question. And probably, I made this a little bit bigger than the stone so I could actually perch them on top of this rather than solder to the side. So let's see, I think, let's do a couple of things. One, let's sweat some solder onto the ends of these wires. And maybe sweat a little solder onto this too. I do that on the pad here down here. Then we can just kind of try and plunk them on there and see how it goes. Nice and slathered. All right. Throw a little bit on the ends of these guys just to sweeten the deal, so to speak. So I could just try and plunk them down there, or I could upend those U's in a square and just set this thing on top of it. That might work too, as long as I can get everything lined up right. So let's let them cool for a minute. Let's try that. I think I might have better placement if I use my pliers to hold on to it. So this may be an impractical way to do this, I'm not sure. We'll give it a try. It's the worst thing that could happen. I guess we'll find out here now. I don't think this was side soldered on. I think some of the others might have. Alright. Got 3 of them there. Let's cool that off. Yeah, I could probably make that work. See if we get this other one on here now. Okay, I actually created kind of a rounded square band because I thought that would be kind of cool with this one. You can buy rounded square mandrels, which allow you to shape things like that. Kind of nice to have around sometimes. So I thought in order to keep things stable, I just push it down. See if we can't get it all the way in there. Strangely, all of those solder joints were good. Okay. That's not too bad. Let's solder it and see. I have some more pad over here, so. I decided just to go simple on the band for this one since we're doing 3 projects. The idea here, though, is to show you the setting mostly. So many different kinds of settings you can do. It's fun to try different ones. Hot piece of metal, don't throw it on your hand, Chad. Let's pickle it and work on the 3rd one. So, the 3rd one was this funky piece of rose quartz, I guess it is. It's just cut so with sharp corner lines going that curve up like that. So I thought, let's do a rear mount one. A few things in advance just to save some time. I think I'm going to make the overall bezel that we're going to shape to create kind of a unique sort of shape bezel. I'm going to use some 26 gauge sterling sheet. So I think to start, I'm just going to bend this in half. What I want to do is find out where this goes to on the stone. A little scratch. So where that line starts is where I want to cut it. Or at least I might cut it a little off to the side and leave myself a little room to file. That looks pretty good. So we're going to need to deal with this severe curve that comes in, so we're going to have to cut out part of the corners and solder them together into that kind of a shape. But I think it might do us some good if we soldered a border around here out of, say, 14 gauge square wire. Let's try that and see how that works. Okay, so since I want to have this solder joint in the side somewhere, I'm going to just start about right there, and I'm going to file a 90-degree notch using the corner of the bastard file here. That's 45 degrees to the edge of the wire here. But, I'm going to solder the corners to make them stronger. Now that I've done them. Trying to make sure that this will all solder together nicely. So I'm going to lay out some of these pieces in a square. If I can pick them up. Chances are good I'm going to go back and add some more solder after this too. But let's get this fluxed and get it at least stuck in place, then we can add some more if we need to. All right. Okay. So we need to figure out how steep of a curve we need to make on this. So let's cut a strip here. Shouldn't be too hard to figure this out. So now I can kind of follow that line. That will give us kind of that sort of a join there. So, if we do that, we should be able to kind of trace that out a little bit. So in theory, if we cut out these little pieces, bend them inwards and solder them together, that should give us pretty close to that. So when we push this in there, it'll butt up against that with a little luck. So, however, it's going to be probably going to do a lot of this on the Dremel. Okay, you can see I've cut out a little bit and then I've folded them in. Okay, so let's see how we can do this. Okay, so I'm going to sweat a little solder on there, and then we'll just plop that on there and see if we can get it to stick. All right. Now, I believe we just need to add a loop and a bail. Solder more to that ring part than to the rest of it. So I have some solder over there. We are almost done. Alright, here's that other pre-made bail that I made. Just going to pop that on there. Get those ends touching. Pick. There's my pick. I'm going to heat that up. Leave that pickle for a while. We'll get it cleaned up and get everything finished. Alright, so you can see I already set this one. I just popped it in there and then I pushed it over the top of it with the sides of the needle nose after I polished it. And it seems pretty secure. So, interesting look. I'm not sure if I like it or not, but it's definitely different. So, this other one, I just popped it in there and I bent it over. I have not yet cut them off. So, I can... right there. I will likely, before I tighten these down the rest of the way, use the Dremel in order to taper them a little bit, very carefully since this is an opal. And then I will show you the finished product at the end. Last but not least, make sure I get this one sitting the way it sits best. Fill out the setting here. That's about as good as it's going to get. So. I'll probably clean that up a little bit better on the back, but that's how you do it. Alright, well, hope you enjoyed that video on square stones and different settings you can do for them. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. I really appreciate this, you supporting the channel in that way. If there are other ways you'd like to support the channel, make sure to hit the video description down below. There's links to my Patreon, how to buy me a coffee if you just want to give me a tip, my merch store, and also my website if you want to check out some of the jewelry I make here for sale. I think you'll find there's a lot of pretty stuff over there, and it's all handmade by me. So before you go though, you might want to check out some more videos. If you like this one, I have about 170 videos on YouTube, all different tutorials and tips about metalsmithing, different skill levels too, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And they're sorted into playlists that way as well, so it's easy to find them, I think. So if you like that kind of stuff, make sure to hit the subscribe button before you leave, so you can see all of the new content. I put out 3 videos per week, and I think we've come up with some fun topics. So Thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.